Oh, what the fuck did I get myself into? Hello folks, and welcome to another edition of Mega Reviews. As you can no doubt tell, it's October, and as such, it's time to get spooky, and it's time to get scary, and what better way than to play through some horribly horrifying games. I figured instead of tackling games that are truly meant to be scary or otherwise horrific in nature, I'd go for some games that are so awful, they terrify me. And what better place to start than with what is probably the most horrifying game I've ever experienced, up to this point at least, Shadow the Hedgehog. With that said, let's not waste any more time and jump right into the clusterfuck this game calls a story. The game begins with Shadow basically staring off into the distance, reminiscing about his past, basically trying to piece together just what the hell happened to him in the first place. For those of you who are unaware, Shadow here is a character introduced in Sonic Adventure 2 who is known to all as the ultimate life form. Not much is known about him other than he was created by Dr. Eggman's grandfather, Dr. Gerald Robotnik, aboard the Space Colony Ark over 50 years prior to the point in which this game takes place, who was cryogenically sealed in a capsule and hidden away only to be eventually discovered and freed by Dr. Eggman. After basically doing the same fucking thing he does in this game, Shadow realizes his true purpose and teams together with Sonic at the end of Adventure 2 to save the world, only to then presumably die. He isn't dead, however, as it's soon discovered by Rouge that he somehow survived the tragic fall from space, only now he's suffering from amnesia, and that's where this game comes into play. As Shadow is trying to piece his memory back together all over again, he notices a gaping hole appear from the sky as a swarm of aliens suddenly descend and begin attacking the city. Shadow begins to walk away, as any person in the right mind would, when he suddenly hears a voice call out his name. In comes Black Doom, the leader of the alien race, who explains to Shadow that in order to fully restore his memory, he needs to bring the 7 Chaos Emeralds to him. Shadow, trying to make sense of the situation, tries asking Black Doom just what the fuck he's talking about, but Black Doom isn't having any of this and disappears, causing random explosions to occur behind him. Shadow, not really thinking logically, decides that if this complete fucking stranger just so happens to claim he knows about Shadow's past, that he ultimately has to believe him. Okay, first off, who the fuck is Black Doom, and what is his connection to Shadow? We learn later on, very disjointedly mind you, that Black Doom somehow met up with Professor Gerald aboard the Space Colony Ark 50 years ago to strike a deal with him, and that if Black Doom gives some of his blood to Professor Gerald to finish creating Shadow, that Shadow would then collect the Chaos Emeralds and deliver them to Black Doom in exactly 50 years' time so that he and his alien race may take over the planet. What the fuck kind of convoluted bullshit backstory is that? Seriously, what is Shadow's deal? Apparently, Shadow was originally conceived by Gerald Robotnik as a means of curing his granddaughter Maria, who suffered from a fatal disease that was slowly killing her. The idea behind Shadow was for him to be the ultimate life form, basically being someone who is immortal. This would allow Shadow to aid in curing Maria of her disease and helping to create a world of people who could basically just live on forever. Gunn, being the government officials who fund all of Professor Gerald's research, saw this experiment as a threat to something, and decided to shut down all further funding and raid the Ark to arrest everyone on board, killing Maria in the process. Gerald, in an act of revenge, programs the Space Colony Ark to crash into the planet in 50 years' time. Gee, where have I heard that before? To destroy all of life as we know it. But we'll get back to that little plot point in a little bit now, won't we? Jumping back to the story at hand here, Shadow makes it his quest to locate and collect all 7 Chaos Emeralds for, well, that's up to you at this point. This game has a morality system where the story basically alters depending on the choices you make. You can team up with Black Doom and help him get further in his plans to destroy the planet, or you can team up with Sonic and company across various pathways to help save the world just to spite Black Doom. Or you could just be a douche and do everything for yourself and just say fuck you to any and everyone who stands in your way. Or you could even go one route, either good or bad, and completely turn on whoever you've aligned yourself with at the very last minute just to be an even bigger douche. At the end of it all though, none of the choices you make mean a goddamn thing because there's a final story segment that completely fucking retcons all prior endings just to have you save the world anyway. What was the fucking point of letting you choose your pathway if it doesn't mean jack shit in the end? Seriously, a full plot synopsis of every little single thing that's addressed in any of these 10 non-canon endings is fucking pointless because it's just that, non-canon. So I'm not gonna sit here and waste your time, or mine, discussing it all. Instead, let's just jump straight to the final story, where it's at this point that we basically learn all of what I addressed earlier about Professor Gerald striking a deal with Black Doom, only now we also learn that good old Gerald developed the Eclipse Cannon shortly after first encountering Black Doom as a means of destroying both Black Doom and his entire race of aliens after they've begun attacking the planet in 50 years' time. Oh shit, enough with the 50 years' time bullshit plot device. And then it's up to Shadow, and Shadow alone, to defeat Black Doom and save the world. Shadow, after one last shitty level, easily does so and the day is saved. The President and the Commander of Gun reflect and come to the realization that they were wrong about Professor Gerald and that he was actually a good guy after all, whose legacy should forever be honored for his contributions to the world.
Let us pay homage to Professor Gerald. Let's work to ensure peace and prosperity for a brighter future
that he fucking tried to destroy. This is arguably the stupidest part of this entire story. You know, aside from these fucking aliens. How the fuck is Professor Gerald, the man who once again, in an act of revenge, programmed his space colony to crash into the fucking planet, wiping all of existence away, a hero? He built the Eclipse Cannon before he did this. So no, he wasn't some saint who should be honored. He was a fucking mad scientist. Better yet, he was a fucking douche. Regardless, fuck this game's story. Not only is it full of inconsistencies and plot holes and retcons left and right, but it's just fucking stupid. And worst of all, it's boring beyond belief. Nothing interesting happens throughout any of the non-canon storylines, and the final story segment is just more shit-flavored icing smothered on top of this clusterfuck of a shitty birthday cake. Nothing here makes sense, and it's all just a fucking mess. An unnecessary one at that. Seriously, why didn't Shadow just get the idea to ask, oh, I don't know, those that he was around throughout all of Sonic Heroes? They're all in this game too, and yet not once does Shadow get the idea in his head to just ask anybody who he is, where he came from, and what the hell happened to him. Look, I'm done here. I just can't handle any more of this fucking story. Let's move on to the gameplay already. Fuck. In terms of gameplay, Shadow the Hedgehog pretty much controls exactly the same from SA2 and Heroes. Only now, we have a new element introduced specifically for this game: gun gameplay. That's right, Shadow's now packing some heat. While it is true that Shadow can still attack enemies in standard fashion, being just by simply jumping on them or by using the homing attack, the prime focus of combat in this game is through the addition of both firearms and basic melee weapons. While the idea of adding gunplay to the Sonic formula is outright bizarre, it is one of the things I can compliment for playing surprisingly competently. All of the weapons, with exceptions to your rocket launchers, bazooka, and melee-based weapons, have a wonderful auto lock-on feature that makes short work of most enemies, big or small, no problem. Some weapons are more useful than others, and the kinds of weapons you come across vary depending on what level you're in. But more often than not, they get the job done in the way that they were intended, and for that, I can applaud them. Another feature implemented in this game are Shadow's Chaos Powers. Depending on what allegiance you take and which enemies you decide to take out, one of 2 meters on the top left and right hand corners of the screen will begin filling up. The blue meter on the right is your hero meter, which fills up slowly after every evil enemy, try saying that quickly 7 times, is destroyed, and the same logic applies vice versa. Once your hero meter is full, you can unleash Chaos Control, which allows Shadow to zip past the stage at blindingly fast speeds for a short amount of time, making levels where your prime objective is to just simply get to the end, which aren't incredibly often, mind you, complete jokes. Once your evil meter is full, you can unleash Chaos Blast, which basically acts as a giant screen nuke, which kills most smaller enemies within the vicinity of Shadow. Neither of these moves are particularly useful, however, as all the levels are broken down into missions, with both missions for each stage usually featuring a task that involves you either collecting or destroying a certain amount of items to progress, meaning that if you just fly past everything with Chaos Control, you're more than likely missing out on all kinds of shit you need in order to progress. Chaos Blast is also pretty fucking pathetically short-ranged and weak. Your best option is to actually just let your meter slowly drain once it's full, seeing as though in this state, regardless of which meter is full, you're not only completely invincible, but you also have infinite ammo for whatever weapon you're holding at the time. This makes killing a large number of enemies even easier, seeing as though you don't have to worry about running out of ammo until your meter is depleted. It doesn't last forever though, so be cautious of your ammo consumption. Now, when it comes to how Shadow actually controls, well, he fucking doesn't. Shadow is both incredibly stiff and super fucking slippery. Movement feels irregular, platforming feels sluggish, and all sense of even somewhat competent control is thrown right out of the fucking window. Enemy placement, I find, can also be kind of haphazard as well, as there's plenty of instances where you'll go to attack one enemy and suddenly get blindsided by another, which will, more often than not, knock you down into a bottomless pit. The camera is also utterly atrocious, and there's countless circumstances where you're seemingly forced to make leaps of faith because the camera either gets caught on something like a wall and won't move, or is just completely uncooperative and gets locked into place. This makes certain levels and various pathways that have plentiful amounts of areas with huge chunks of nothing absolute chores to play through. Then there's levels where the overall design of them is just so fucking bleak and uninspired that it's easy to get lost in them. Take Lost Impact for example. This level takes place aboard the Space Colony Ark and has you either simply get to the goal ring or take on the hero mission and defeat all of the artificial chaos experiments that are lurking throughout the entire base. You have to defeat 35 of these fucking things, and while true, that may not sound like a whole lot, especially compared to some other missions that have you defeat so much as twice as many of these enemies, the level design in this area is what will really make you want to smash your controller through your television screen. This area is massive, and there are so many twists and turns to take that it's really easy to get lost. Not only that, but everything looks the fucking same, making it even easier to get lost. Unless you look up a step-by-step guide that shows you where every single artificial chaos is, you are undoubtedly going to miss one or two artificial chaos by the end of the level, which means you've got to backtrack all the way to the fucking beginning of the stage just to find those few that you missed. And did I mention that some of these levels go on for a really fucking long time? The first time I played Lost Impact, you know how long it took me? It took me over an hour and a half. Because of just how lost I was. I streamed the game sometime last year, and when I got to this level, it still took me up to 45 fucking minutes to complete this one fucking stage. Say what you will about Eggman Land in Sonic Unleashed. Sure, that stage goes on for an obnoxiously long amount of time, but at least there's shit to do all the way through, aside from wandering around aimlessly looking for one or two fucking items you missed because of shitty level design that all looks far too fucking samey for its own good. That's not even going into this game's biggest issue. It's padding. There are a total of 22 levels, not counting the final stories level, to play through. However, while there are 22 levels, a single playthrough will instead put you through 6 levels, with you making the choice on which allegiance you'll assign yourself to all the way to the end. All 5 of this game's final levels will have you pick one of 2 sides, but you need to pick every side at some point to get all 10 non-canon endings, so that you can unlock the final story segment. And instead of just simply being able to pick the stage you left off on during your previous playthrough and pick the opposite side to get the other ending, you're forced to play through the same 6 stages all over again just to get that next ending, meaning you have to play through the game, and Westopolis more specifically, 10 fucking times just to get to the final story segment. Bullshit tedious padding if I ever saw it, folks. You know what an average playthrough this game looks like for me? I play through the neutral story, because every neutral mission just has you getting from point A to point B, like it always should be, and then once that's done, I pop in a fully completed save file and play through the final story. In fact, that's exactly what I did for this review. I recorded enough footage of both gameplay and non-canon story that I needed, and then used a complete save file so I could skip to the end and gather the necessary footage I needed from there. Is that lazy? Yes. Is that cheating? Yes. Do I care? Fuck no. This game is ridiculously tedious enough to sit through as it is, so there's no way in hell I was going to go through and record every little single thing this game has to offer, because it just isn't fucking worth it. And you know what? You shouldn't either. Please, do not play this game. It's easily what I would consider to be the absolute worst the Sonic series has to offer. Hell, it might even be the worst video game I've ever played. Yeah, it's that fucking bad. Regardless, that's all I have to say about this piece of shit. Thank you all for watching, and as always, sayonara, Shadow the Hedgehog, and good riddance.
Goodbye forever, Shadow the Hedgehog.